Yo, what's going on? So, this is a 25 Junkyard on Fortified Inspiring Grievous Shrouded week. So to start things off, I always like to, on each of the weeks, go to either Gunker first or to the twins in the middle, based on where the ship is at. Right now it is over top of the Trog King, so we're going to start by going over to Gunker. Now the reason for this is because if you come up and make the first pull I'm making here, there's two quick zap bots that you can grab right here. That you can see the DPS have grabbed, and then if you pull these down and over before this next pack comes over, there's another shock bot that is right inside of these coil bearers, along with a one of those HP bots. And then over by the slime pit, there is a grease bot that a rogue can pick up. Sometimes I'll pull it later into like the dungeon, but basically pull this along with the pack that's over on the left there with the Shrouded. And on Fortified weeks, it is safe to just lust on this pool. It's a pretty big pool. Ideally, you want to try to keep the inspired mobs away from the other ones, especially the one that casts Shrink. Anything that you can do to keep that away is preferred. But generally, this isn't too bad of a pack, especially because you start off right off the bat with 3 of your DPS having a shock bot. Now, as a tank, I always come over and just grab this welding bot right here for the extra HP and increase on healing, and then we'll start heading back towards the other bots. So, things to be careful with these lurkers. Really not too much. It does do a cast, but you can either just do any kind of CC to stop the cast, or use your detox on whoever it chooses, and it'll just stop casting. Really, the dangerous mobs in here are the slime that I've marked that reproduces and casts the AoE like stench ability. That's a good spot to save Lake Sweep, and then also the slime elemental. Its cast will put a poison debuff on people that you can also detox, but what is really dangerous about it is when it does its slime wave. That's like the like frontal projectile that it goes. On Fortified weeks, especially on high keys, that'll just one-shot people if it hits them. So you can use things like Paralyze, you can throw down Leg Sweep, like I said, or you can also Ring of Peace. The nice thing here is that there's also another shock bot, which is great for you as the tank to grab, along with a grease bot right there. And then you can grab the monstrosity and the other slimes. Now you'll notice I keep on marking the slimes with skull. That's because, again, it's the more dangerous mob in here. The monstrosity obviously pulls you in. If it pulls you in, you'll get a disease on you that like does a lot of damage, but you can just detox it off again. Same thing if it goes on one of your players. I tend to run out just in case one of my melee is a little like, you know, gung-ho about things and can't dispel it off themselves. That way you can dispel them and you don't lose one of your bots. But you'll see as soon as the slime that I marked with skull dies, I go ahead and I pull this other lurker and this other slime elemental along with the monstrosity. Unfortunately, the slime wave where he goes frontal just went off and killed 2 DPS and a healer, so that's super unfortunate. Ideally that doesn't happen, but unfortunately they apparently were in a line and they got a little excited. So from there, again, just make sure we're taking care of this. Make sure that interrupt the slime elemental whenever you can. Alternatively, you can just dispel the person and be ready to kick its hard cast that it does. That's the one that just killed 3 of our people here. Once this pack's dead, ideally, it's already dead by now, but, you know, we lost 3 people. I do pull the other slime elemental and the other slime that, again, I marked with skull that reproduces. I try actually not to pull that because it's inspired right now, but one of my DPS has other things in mind, so we're just going to have to deal with some dangerous mobs in here, and hopefully no one else dies. With this pack, because of this going on, and you can see there, soon as it gets pulled in, our hunter dies because of that. So that's what you really want to watch out for. Ideally, you don't pull this inspired mob with the other ones. As soon as the slime elemental is dead, you're safe to pull it. And I would have pulled it right after that, but unfortunately, like I said, a DPS had something else in mind, so just kind of react. If that happens, maybe I probably should have Ring of Peaced it out, just so we could take care of the slime elemental, but at the same time, the longer the other slime is up, the more damage it does because it just keeps reproducing and they all cast other stuff. But you can see as soon as that one's dead and the slime elemental's dead, well, let's talk toxic monstrosities up, I'm going to pull this other slime. Again, over there where I just pulled it from, there's another haste spot for your team. And again, you should ideally let all of your DPS get the haste spots. There's 3 haste spots over here. So that's perfect for the 3 DPS. And you can see I stayed in on that one with the toxic monstrosity, and I just detoxed myself just to make sure that I could stay in and get the stun off and take care of these ads. But if everything was done correctly, you should have 4 shock bots right now and 3 grease spots, so the haste buff for all 3 of your DPS, and then as you come back around here right before you start the first boss, in the sewer over there on the far side, there's another shock bot for your healer to grab. Or if a DPS died, then they have a shock bot to grab. So again here, I generally pull the lurker and the slime. Sometimes I'll go over and grab the other lurker with this, but with it being fortified, I decided just to do the 2, especially because we're dealing with less shock bots than we should have ideally right now. But once it's dead, I'm going to go ahead and just interrupt this and then go over and pull the next stuff. Now again, it is Inspiring Week, so I try to CC the mob so that it doesn't get pulled. Fortunately, my CC was on cooldown, so I ended up waiting. And I'm going to try to CC this and then pull the other one in. Once again, though, my DPS have other ideas, so now we're just going to have to deal with this. So again, it's super important that you just, if this happens to you, make sure you're using Detox to get rid of those poisons, and then hopefully people aren't getting hit by the frontal that the slime elementals do. Ideally, you don't want to tank it in the death of the lurker like I am, because it does do AoE damage as you stand in it, but I wasn't as concerned about that because I was just trying to make sure that we got all these things taken care of before they killed somebody else. From there, pretty much just pick up these 2, the slime elemental and the other slime. Now I ideally pull the slime elemental and the monstrosity, and once the elemental's dead, then I'll pull on the other slime. But if you've got really good DPS or you're feeling confident with it, you can pull the other one. You can see our healer just went to go grab the shock bot that was in that pipe. Ideally, he should have left that for the DPS, but the hunter's died twice now, so you know I don't blame him for having trust issues. So as soon as that last wave went off with the frontal on the slime elemental, you can see I pulled in the other one. That way we can take care of it. I make sure that I do have leg sweep up just so I can take care of its AoE pulse that it's about to do. And you can see I did use it there to stun everything, and now I am knocking away. Unfortunately, they do still get that AoE cast off if you knock them away with Ring of Peace. So ideally you do want to use a leg sweep. You can paralyze them too, but they do just immediately recast it. So just be careful with that. But once these things are dead, you can top off people as the healer drinks, and then it'll be time for the boss. Now, a lot of people seem to think that you have to stand in these bots the entire fight. That is not the case. Please don't do that as a tank. The only time you need to go in there is when the push is going out or the pull, and then if there's a slime like in your path, then obviously you want to go in. But other than that, you just kind of want to. I just walk in front of the melee one. That way I'm not taking extra damage. All the people standing in those bots, they're just taking constant damage because the bot actually does damage. You'll notice since there's slime in front of me, now I stop and I wait and I get in the bot. Again, that's really the only times you need to get in there is if there's slime in your way, or if he's doing coalesce, like he is here where he's pulling in. And honestly, as soon as you see the slime go past you, you're good to get right back out. Now, something else to keep in mind here is that as a monk, if anyone does get themselves slimed, you can just use your detox, and that will actually just immediately remove the debuff from them. So ideally, use that if you see any people on your team end up getting slimed. And then one thing that you can also tell your DPS if you have ranged is that where the water is around the outside of this, by like where that pipe was for that one shock bot, you can actually stand there as a ranged, and the slime will never it won't push out to you when he does the push out. And the coalesce, all you have to do is move backwards as it's going, and you can basically stand there the whole fight without having to ever get inside of a shock bot. You do have to dodge the slime once or twice, but it's mostly safe. Just keep in mind though that ideally, if you're going to do that, your healer stands a little bit closer or is using the middle shock butt or whatever these things are called, so that they can reach those people, because they will still take damage, but it's not nearly as much. So, once this boss is dead for this week, we are going to go straight over to Twins. Now, I was coming over here to the slimes to grab a haste spot, because right over here by this slime on the left, there's normally a haste spot, but I see that the rogue actually already grabbed it and stealthed it off, so I changed my mind there. If it's there and you don't have someone who grabbed it already, ideally you just pull one of those slimes, because again, they are dangerous. Pulling two at a time is a little bit sketch, or it can be. But anyways, I come into here, pull these scrap bots. There is an Inspired over here, and I had just used Paralyze, so I'm going to wait. Normally, I would pull that other 3-pack, and I would just Paralyze the Inspired, but I'm just waiting for my Paralyze to come off cooldown. With this, obviously, these do a Blade Storm effect that you don't want to stand in, and then they also do Exhaust that you need to pull things out of, because it both does damage and makes it so you can't hit the targets, kind of like a smoke bomb. So just pull those out, and you can see I'm just dealing with these away and being ready to kick Square and Moon when they do their heal. As soon as Square and Moon are dead, you're safe to pull it back into that other Inspired mob. These other ones, they don't have anything that you can like interrupt or anything like that, so I'm just waiting for those to go off, and honestly, as soon as both of these do their cast, you're safe to pull it back in, because they're not going to do anything else. Now, those things ended up dying, so that's actually pretty good. So over here on the left, where the Shrouded is, you want to pull both of these and then pull away. You don't want a chance pulling the mechanical spider over there, as it does a fuck ton of damage and will most likely wipe your group if you pull it with other things, especially on Fortified week. Especially with an inspiring mob in here. But there is a shock butt over there. Ideally, your team waits, if they need one, if someone died or whatever, to go grab that until after this pack is dead, so that they don't risk, again, pulling the spider. Now, these obviously are super annoying because they kind of move around. They don't have a threat table. They just fire at people, and they do like throw those grenades. So just make sure you don't stand in the orange stuff, and try to use Clash and Ring of Peace to kind of control them as best as possible. Now, the next pack, we are going to do the Mechanical Spider and the other guy. The other guy that's marked with star, you just need to worry about either stunning or paralyzing him when he does his overclock, and then do a interrupt on his heal. Other than that, you just basically want to prioritize the spider, and whenever it is doing its AoE ability that it's doing right now, if your healer is struggling, throw up like a Cell Brew, use Shield of Aegis or Fort Brew or something like that, and then help off heal with your group, because seriously, on a 25 tyrannical, or sorry, 25 fortified, that thing really hurts. So ideally, you want to get this killed as fast as possible, definitely before it does its third AoE. Now, be careful after this, because the next pack is the mini-boss that's Shrouded. So you can see here I'm helping heal up the group, and I'm telling my healer to drink so that we can do this mini-boss without having to worry about anyone, dying, hopefully. Now, there are 2 mobs in here that don't have the threat, so again, use Clash and Ring of Peace to try to keep them as close as possible, and definitely try to stop them from going over by the bosses. Pulling the boss with this, obviously, is not good. So just be careful with that. But again, I try to keep them as close to other packs as possible, just so that we can continue cleaving on them. Make sure, again, that you're using Paralyze for the bats, or Leg Sweep, because again, Ring of Peace doesn't stop the bat from its cast. Either does Clash, so it does need to be a hard CC. Now, unfortunately, my healer does go down, so that's super unfortunate. Don't know why my Warlock's not rezzing, but in the meantime, I'm just typing res and trying to help off heal and getting back into the boss. Now, after this pack, you're safe to pull right away. Even if your healer has no mana, like right there, you can see my healer's got no mana. He's going to get full mana from this. It gives like 65% mana. So pull straight into these. Ideally, if you can, pull the Scrap Hounds away from the Inspired, because they do that frontal, and it's like 45 yards or something like that. So you can see there I tried to ring it away, and it wasn't far enough range to stop it. But the only thing that does stop those Bork casts that are the frontals there would be a Leg Sweep, or Ring of Peace knocking them away. So just be ready to tank them away. I'm trying to tank them away, but unfortunately the other guy moves around on us at once, and it's not working out too well. Now there is another shock bot. If someone else dies right there, you can see my healer just grabbed it. It was inside that hut. And then once this pack is dead, I'm going to pull the remaining 5 mobs that are in here. 2 of them, again, are the casters that do the heal at the end when they get low, and they also do exhaust with the Bladestorm effect. And then there's also one of the guys in here that does the overclock with the heal, so watch out for those. And then over on this area to the left, there's 2 bots. There's a welding bot and there's a grease bot. So if your DPS still need a grease bot, or if ideally no one has died in your group, that should be time for you to grab your grease bot, or the healer to grab theirs. So that's there if you need it. But again, you can see I'm just using Paralyze and Leg Sweep to take care of Star, and I'm saving my interrupt for Moon and Square. Now I used mine on Moon. Unfortunately, Square, I remarked it with Skull. It did get interrupted, so that's good. I was in a group earlier today where it didn't get interrupted, and it does go to full health. So please do not get those casts off. Make sure that you're saving your interrupt for that. Now with this boss, it's fortified, so it's not too big. Just make sure that you're interrupting Star, and make sure that you're saving Lust, because we did Lust at the beginning of the dungeon. Lust should be up again. You're going to Lust as soon as the guy comes off of his bike, car, cart, whatever you want to call it. So just make sure you're saving cooldowns for when he jumps off and taunting him in as soon as he jumps off. And again, make sure that you've got a focus kick for Star. So pull him in, and then obviously you want to face this away, because he does do a small frontal. He also does do a targeted one where he jumps towards someone, but the frontal, you do want to just make sure that you point it away from people, and ideally just work on him and continue cleaving on Star. Now, ideally, if one of these 2 dies first, you want it to be the guy that was on the bike, because Trixie, you can just interrupt her casts. But do know that if a cast goes off and he's dead, she will one-shot. So definitely just make sure that you guys are getting casts off interrupted if that has the case, or ideally she just dies really quick right after he does, and then you don't have to worry about it. Now this next pack's a little annoying because, again, we've got the guy who does the Bladestorm effect. He does have the exhaust that he puts on the ground, and then all of these trogs don't have an aggro table. So they just randomly fixate people in your group, and then they'll stay on them. So try to pull this guy in. Ideally pull them, heal him out right before he does the Bladestorm, or when he's doing the Bladestorm. That way it doesn't wreck them. But do know that these trogs do need to die too, because they do a lot of damage. And then obviously that robot blows up when it hits 20%, so don't die there. Now, to make the percent, because I didn't pull the slimes earlier, I did pull that one lizard there, and then I am going to pull the inspired mob that's over there too. This should give us the perfect amount of percent that we're going to need towards the end, as long as we pull the next couple packs that we've got here. The big thing to watch out for here is that some of these mobs do an enrage. You can stun them or paralyze them. Save your interrupt for the shaman. It does a grounding hex, and that hex just roots everybody, and then you can't move at all, and obviously that's not good to have with this Shrouded mob up. So definitely save your interrupts for that guy and mark him as priority. I marked him as Skull just so that we could take care of him. Now, if someone does need a Shrouded bot in the cave, not this one, but the one that was back there by where we pulled the lizard, there is another bot, so you can pull one lizard and the bots right underneath him, and you can do that for another grease bot. I'm not concerned about the grease bot for myself because I'm a monk. If you don't know this, monks, our GCD is always 1 second as a Brewmaster and Windwalker, so the haste doesn't really affect too much for us. Obviously, it shortens our Cake Smash cooldown, but I'm not too worried about it, and it's not worth me going out of the way to try to grab that as a tank. And there is one more before the final boss that we can grab. So you can see I did CC the inspired mob there, just so that we could take care of the casters, and then as soon as the casters are dead, I pulled him in along with the other malfunctioning scrap bot. Again, keep the scrap bot away from the group when he's going to do his Bladestorm effect, and obviously watch out for the exhaust when he drops it down. As soon as the inspired mob is dead, I am going to go over and pull these other 3 mobs. Now there's the 2 trash masters that don't target you. They don't have the threat table, and they just kind of randomly throw things on the ground, and then they'll jump away. But again, the guy marked with Moon, you can go ahead and just make sure that you're watching him. He does put an enrage on himself with a cast that you can just interrupt. Generally, I just kind of pull these around to wherever the trash dudes jump to. That way, we're continuing to cleave on them. Now, as long as you pull the trash that you've seen here so far, the only other pieces that we need from over here are these 2 bullies. Now, as I'm pulling the bullies, I'm marking each of these conduits, and this is just for the boss, a little thing that I can do while I'm waiting to pull them. Generally, I'll put the hunter at the far back left one. I'll put another range where I've got purple marked. I put normally the healer where square is, just because it's kind of close to where we're going to be standing. And then I'll put the ranged, either like the Windwalker, the rogue, the warrior, someone who has a decent amount of mobility that they can like move out and then get back, at the one marked with star. And then me as the tank, I'll generally grab the one that moves around. That's the robot dude that you just go to. So you can see I've marked them on the ground, and I've also marked the group. If you don't have a group and you're not comfortable doing that, that's fine. You can do that. Just know that if the lightning doesn't go to the conduit after people get hit on this boss, it does do AoE damage to the group. So it is kind of important that people go to the right spots. Now, sometimes you mark people and they go to the right spots. Sometimes you mark them and they say, fuck that, and they do what they want. So let's find out what my group does here. Now, as these trogs are coming out before the first lightning thing, definitely try to group them up with Ring of Peace and then use Leg Sweep just to make them stop hitting other people. And again, as soon as the stuff comes out, you can see I just Chi Torpedo out there. Unfortunately, someone else landed on the robot, so I went to the blue one, and our hunter is confused about what he needs to do, mostly because somebody went to the one that he was marked with, and he can't figure out to go to star because eyes are hard as a survival hunter, apparently. But that's okay. Our healer healed through it, but just know that does do a lot of damage around, so you can see there I actually had to sell brew, and I'm still taking quite a bit of damage now, which is ironic because this boss normally doesn't do that much damage. Alright, now the next one I can see, again, people kind of went to the wrong ones. I shouldn't have gone to star there because my healer was going there, and healer does not understand what's going on right now. He can't figure out that blue is his mark and that blue is unmarked, but whatever, he's just choosing to heal through it. So again, sometimes your group figures it out, sometimes they don't. Ideally, I should have said something like, hey, go to your marks with the lightning, and generally I do, but the group was seeming good enough that I figured they would figure it out, but that's what you get for assuming things. So, as soon as this is dead, go ahead and just unmark everyone else, and we're good to go towards the end. So, if you've done this correctly, you should be just over 90%, because the remaining 2 trash packs will give you 10%. So, in these 2 trash packs, we are going to have the cavalry dude that will just kind of spin around and do rapid fire. Super dangerous, even as a tank. Just know that it prefers to start the rapid fire wherever you're at. So wherever it's pointing at, it's going to go towards you. So just be ready right away to sidestep left or right so that you move out of it. And ideally try to point it away from the rest of the group because melee be dumb. And then on here, the guy marked with star, he's the one that does the shrink and the enlarge. Definitely kick shrink. It's the most deadly one because people are going to be running around from this rapid fire. And if they're shrunk and someone steps on them, it's going to instantly kill them. The enlarge isn't as big of a deal. I generally will save like paralyze or leg sweep for it, or just let it go off because it's, again, not that big of a deal. It's just a buff on him that increases his damage and he doesn't really do anything. Now, in the next pack, there's the same 3 that there was here, plus a Shrouded guy and a Coil Bearer. Again, Star is the one that's the dangerous one with the shrink. And again, point the cavalry guy away from the group so that they don't get hit by rapid fire. Now, just so you know, you can outrange rapid fire. It's actually only like 20 yards, so when he charges away, generally I just kind of stand where I was at and keep on tanking things until his rapid fire is done and then come in. That's just a little bit safer to do it that way. Now, if you need a haste spot, as soon as this pack is done, if you follow the pack that is straight ahead of me, right around the hut there on the left, there is 1 grease spot. Don't go any farther because there are shrouded mobs over there, and there is a pat, so just be careful with it. I was trying to tell someone to grab it, and no one wanted to grab it, so I was deciding if I wanted to grab it, and I was just like, meh. Doesn't matter. I'm just a tank, so it's not super big. But if there are a DPS that needs one, that's a great one for a DPS to pick up if someone died, especially to that rapid fire. Now, during this, ideally, you might have seen it, but I used my Invoke Nizao on the last pack. That's because if you use it there, you can use Weapons of Order at the beginning of this fight, and then you'll have Invoke Nizao back up for Phase 2. So ideally, you want to use Weapons of Order here, and then save Invoke Nizao for the second part. Do be aware that during this, those blue bombs that come down, they are larger than they appear, so don't be anywhere close to them. These bots can be moved with Ring of Peace there, and you can also leg sweep them, but they cannot be paralyzed. And then he does do this wreck ability. During that, that's a good time to use either Fort Brew or Cell Brew, because it does do quite a bit of damage, so just be aware of that. Now, when it comes to the hacking machine, here's the key. I see a lot of people mess this up. Here's the key. Go slow. Just take your time. You've got plenty of time, especially in this key. You've generally got a lot of time, so you'll see there. I just kind of take my time. You can jump over the beams. Just make sure that you don't land on the lightning floor, because you will get stunned. And then be aware that when you are hacking this machine, it does do damage to you and your group, so just be careful, because again, it is Grievous. So I asked there if we wanted to wait, because we had less coming up in 40 seconds. Our group was impatient, so we were just like, okay, I guess we're killing it. When you come back down, make sure that you don't stand in the lightning that's on the ground, because that lightning still does damage to you. But generally here, pop your pots, pop everything else that you got, invoke Nizao, and just go to town. Do know that when his cast finishes, he will sit there for another like 5 to 10 seconds. So if you did save Fort Brew, you can always, in a last-ditch effort, Fort Brew, and then you have a larger health pool to Touch of Death the boss. So keep that in mind, but that's the dungeon. So normally it's a pretty secure 2 chests doing it the way I did it there. Maybe 3 chests if you do it on a lower key. But if you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.